What's up everybody, it's me E-Man from E-Man's Movie Reviews, and today we're going to review The Suicide Squad. Alright, let's jump into a quick intro. Harley Quinn, Bloodsport, Peacemaker, and a bunch of nutty supervillains at Belle Reve prison are brought together to be a part of a super secret task force. They have to go on a suicidal mission to save the world. Alright, enough of that, let's get into the good.
The good.
Right off the bat, without any question, the best thing going for the Suicide Squad is the slapstick comedy. The reason why it works so well in this movie is because the tone is set and remains mostly consistent all the way through. There were several laugh out loud moments thanks to some of the ridiculously funny situations that the characters are put through. Actually, much of the comedy comes from the characters themselves and even their deaths. Some characters die in such laughable ways that you can't help but to chuckle at how absurd things end up getting. Now I have to say that director James Gunn created some really fun and interesting characters that really become the driving force of the film. Idris Elba's Bloodsport fills in nicely into the role as the reluctant leader with a heart. Not to mention, once you see how deadly he is with his arsenal, you'll appreciate him even more. He does a great job in being the lead for this movie. Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn has a number of scenes that continue to drive home, the eccentric, wacky nature that makes the character so entertaining. John Cena's Peacemaker was hysterical thanks to a combination of good writing and his straight-face acting. My personal favorite might have been Sylvester Stallone's King Shark. While I do think he would have benefited by having less lines, he still manages to have some of the more memorable scenes. One thing that was unexpected was how Gunn found a way to craft out some sincere drama in the midst of all the goofy shenanigans that was happening. Some of the characters have a moment of levity that immediately make them way more relatable. I mean, you forget about their super abilities and all that, and remember that they're just human too. Well, except for King Shark. Next up, The Suicide Squad is full of violence and riveting action scenes. The film spared no expense in letting the bullets fly and bombs explode. As you can expect, the blood and gore is at an all-time high for a typical superhero movie. For example, the rescue mission was just brutal and savage. Despite it all, the movie still finds a way to make it all amusing. Now, I gotta give James Gunn some more credit here because another thing this movie did really well is how it tells the story thanks to the editing. What I appreciated the most was how the timing of some scenes and their placement affect the tension of the film. Many of the surprises in the movie come about thanks to some quick jump cuts or different transition. In addition to that, the cinematography was a great complement to really enhance the zany action scenes. The slow motion comes in at the right moment, and the camera angles keep you engaged with every fight scene. Now, even though this is a little bit over 2 hours, the editing doesn't make the movie feel like it drags at all. Alright, we're done with that, let's go on to the bad.
The bad.
So I probably only had like 2 minor issues with the Suicide Squad, and one of them was that sometimes it gets a little bit too extra with the comedy. Obviously, this is an incredibly subjective critique, but I thought that it was funny enough without having to do things like adding in all the animation and stuff. Now, while this might have been consistent with the certain character I'm alluding to, I just didn't think it was really necessary. Again, it's a minor issue, but not a deal breaker at all. The other minor issue I had was how the film treated Viola Davis's character, Amanda Waller. I thought that her role became a victim of the comedy a bit too much, and it undermined her character as a result. Given how ruthless and intimidating her character is supposed to be, I didn't really care for some of the other scenes that seemed to kind of flip that notion on its head. I understand that it worked for the story, but I think it could have been tweaked a little bit to maintain her menacing presence. Anyway, let's move on to the reason.
The reason.
The Suicide Squad is a bloody fun ride with a lovable cast to match. This is clearly a win for Warner Brothers and DC Comics. I should emphasize that it's not a win just because James Gunn tapped into the Marvel fun factor. It's a win because it crafted a unique lane for its characters and stuck with it. It's essentially an action comedy for really mature audiences. And I really do appreciate the fact that the tone of this movie within the DC line of movies and stuff, it's its own thing, and that's what's more important. The Suicide Squad should have its own lane the same way Wonder Woman has its own lane, the same way Aquaman has its own lane, and so on and so forth. The Suicide Squad is a standalone film. It has no connection to the previous Suicide Squad film. And the only difference here is the new Suicide Squad film has the Suicide Squad. The old one is just called Suicide Squad. So just in case if anyone was confused out there. But the only thing that these movies have in common is the fact that they just reuse some of the same characters. That's it. But they are not connected. Don't feel like you have to go back and rewatch the old one. So when it comes to the rating for the Suicide Squad, I've got to give it an 8 out of 10. Now, in my opinion, the Suicide Squad, this current movie, is hands down better than the previous one. And I'd argue to say that this is probably one of the best DC movies to date. I would say that if you're a DC fan and if you like shows like the Amazon Prime show, The Boys, then the Suicide Squad is definitely a movie that you're gonna wanna see. Now, I should also say, be advised that this movie does have a lot of violence. It is very gory, and it also has full frontal nudity. Nevertheless, be sure to go check out The Suicide Squad on HBO Max and in theaters when you get the chance. So, do you plan on watching The Suicide Squad? If and when you do, come on back to this video and let me know what you think about it. Anyway, that's all the time I got for today. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch my video. I really do appreciate it. Are you new to my channel? Be sure to check out some of my other videos. And if you like what you see, feel free to subscribe, ring that bell for notifications, and tell a friend. I've got more videos and reviews to do for you all. And until next time, I'll see you all later.